Alright, how's it going, guys? Today we're going to be doing a tutorial on how to build a stainless steel mesh wick for I-Atty Genesis Atomizer. There's a lot of different tutorials out there, but I feel as if a lot of them aren't showing you how to do it properly, so we're going to get into it right now. Okay, so let's go. Let's zoom in a little bit. Right now. In my hands over here, okay, is a piece of stainless steel mesh. Okay, this is something that just came with, well, something else that I bought, so it's all folded up, and then you see a couple of wrinkles and kinks over here. Now to get those out, probably just use my thumbnail and then run it along the edges of where it's kinked, and then you'll see it start to smooth out more. Okay. Now the first thing we need to do is to torch this thing. So I have my tweezer over here. I'm going to hold it like so, and then bring out a torch, and then let's just torch this sucker. It just has to be even. You don't have to be extremely thorough or anything like that. Okay, as long as it's changed colors to the point where it's not even anymore, then you know that it's purged. Okay, we do this simply to just remove the impurities. Okay. Because it's not rolled up, it cools down very quickly. So what you want to do now is that you want to look for the best edge on this thing. Okay? The best edge for me is probably right along over here. So right here, what I want to do is that I want to put a crease. Not a very big one, just, you know, something like a centimeter crease is fine. Okay, one crease like so. And then I just pull on through with my fingernails. Okay, you're going to see people with, like, you know, using their screwdrivers to push it this way, using batteries to get it all super flat and stuff. That's really not that necessary. Okay, so what we're going to do now is that we're going to get a piece of paper clip. This is a jumbo-sized paper clip that I unraveled. Okay, you will need this in your toolkit building stuff. You will find this very useful for all sorts of reasons. Mainly on the wick making, what we want to do is that we want to put this in the center of the body, and then we start rolling this up. Okay, and then once it's starting to take form, rolled up, right, we want to apply a little bit of pressure from the center and then roll our fingers back and forth. Yeah. There's no glue, there's nothing necessary, right? There's no moisture in my hands or anything like that. The material itself automatically grips onto itself. So we just keep rolling this on top of the paper clip, and now we basically have the wick in a shish kebab on the paper clip here. Okay, now when it's down to about the right size, like, you know, you can't really go anymore, right? Okay, now it's time to cook this thing. What I like to do is I like to use the juice that I hate the most. You know, everybody always has some kind of juice that they regret lying around. Tried it at the store, but then it didn't steep properly. Or, you know, your friend gave it to you because he hated it, and then you tried it and you hated it too. So, first time when you apply juice onto it, just apply a few drops, okay? Don't go crazy with it or anything. Because the first time is not the same as the other times. Then we want to go ahead and torch this thing. Don't worry if there's a little crackling or anything like that, you know, the juice popping all over the place. Just keep your face away from it, it'll be fine. You'll notice that after the first time that you've applied juice, the second time that you apply it, it's going to be a lot more absorbent than it was the first time. Then we want to, toast it again, right? And we want to repeat this many times. Okay, why? Because the more carbon that we build onto the mesh wick, the less likely we're going to have hot spots. So, here we go. Application number 3. let it die down. Okay, number 4. You'll see some people do this maybe twice. Some people, they don't do it at all. But what happens is that they usually always have hot spots by the time they put their coil onto it, and then they're just adjusting and adjusting. You know, it depends what you want to deal with. I personally think that, you know, adjusting for hot spots is a bigger pain than to apply juice and toast it a couple of times. So I'm going to choose to spend a little more time on just applying, you know, juice that I hate anyways and torching this. So that's the 5th time that we've torched this thing. Okay, so now we're going to set this aside and let it cool. Here's the Genesis Atomizer. Okay, it's not important which atomizer it is, so I'm not even going to bother mentioning what it is. Top cap comes off, Genesis in the middle. Okay, now positive post in the middle, a negative post over here. One is a fill hole, the other one is the hole that you're going to put your wick into. It doesn't matter which direction you use it. Okay, it's all going to work out the same. You just pick one of the holes. Generally, the fill hole is smaller. This one happens to be the exact same size, so it really doesn't matter. I usually like to go this way, depending on which direction you like to wrap. Okay. With me as well is Kanthal, of course. We can't work without Kanthal. We have to build a coil. I'm personally using 30 gauge Kanthal. The recommended Kanthal, okay, for most vapors is around 28 gauge. Okay. Let me just clip a piece of this first. Okay, I'll purposely do a generous portion here. Now, this Kanthal, 30 gauge Kanthal, you just go ahead and buy it on eBay, Temco. It's very cheap. Everybody will recommend you to get it on eBay. It's the easiest way for you know, a small amount at a reasonable price. Okay, the reason I'm purposely using a 30 gauge is because it's harder to work with thinner gauges than it is to work with thicker gauges. Thicker gauges pulse on through a lot more easily. You'll see what I'm talking about after we begin to wrap this thing. So now I have the Genesis in my hand. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and slightly, you know, release the negative screw and the positive screw just a little bit. Now with the edge of my Kanthal over here, some people like to go ahead and then torch the Kanthal to reduce some of the springiness. I personally don't think that's really necessary, but you can if you want to. As you get better at building Genesis atomizers or you know, building coils in general, you'll find that it's really not that big of a deal to reduce the springiness, and you know, you find yourself wasting butane. So I'm not going to bother torching mine. Okay, what I'm holding in my hands right now, okay, apart from the negative post over here, I'm always going to keep tension towards the direction of the hole that I'm going to put the wick in. You see what I'm saying? So it's, the tension is this way, the hole is over here. Okay, now I'm going to tighten this down. And then the rest of the wire I'm going to leave on the side like this. Okay, so now the open lead is in the back. All right. I'm not going to take the wick off of the paper clip because I need this as a spine. So I'm going to insert over here, okay, and then this is still inside of it. The reason that I want a spine over here so that once I begin to do my wraps onto the wick over here, okay, I could apply a little more pressure than usual. Okay. Now, generally, people probably put like 3 wraps, 4 wraps at most. All right. I will intentionally go ahead and do a couple more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. There we go. It is more difficult to put in more wraps than it is to put in less wraps. because less reps, you know, there's just less to adjust for as opposed to having more reps. Now, you want to slightly tighten this lead with the positive post. Then you want to apply pressure onto the spine, onto the paper clip, right? Holding back while you tighten the screw. Because that way, this lead over here is tightened down without being tugged too much towards the positive post. This way your wick is not actually touching. The wick and the positive post is not actually touching each other. See if you can see that. See, there's actually a slight gap in there. That's what I actually want. Okay, now we don't need this anymore. Okay, I'm going to take my small screw, flathead screwdriver, and then I'm going to, you know, adjust the coils that I wrap, just so that everything looks nice and neat. Certain things you adjust by hand, certain things you adjust with your little screwdriver, and now I'm ready to apply this to a mech mod. I have a mech mod sitting right here next to me, and we're going to put this together now. Okay, now time to pulse. Try to keep it on camera to show you guys how the glow is starting to go through. See the top and the bottom heating up. You could tell by my clicks, like, you know, how you should be pulsing. There we go. Yeah, you can see that it's starting to glow all evenly now. Okay, more and more to the bottom. See that? Okay, so now that everything is glowing evenly, we're going to go ahead and take a little tweezer, and then on the edge over here, spin, spin, spin. Same thing on this side. Well, since I have so much slack, I could just use my hands. There's no reason to. Only when there's, you know, not much slack going on, then you could do that. Okay, or you could, if you're totally impatient, just use your nail clipper and clip it off. So now everything is working over here. Okay, it's all glowing evenly. Okay, here's the important part. I have juice over here in the syringe. Right? This is what I don't do as opposed to other people. A lot of people, they like to go ahead and prime the wick first, okay, and then fill up the rest of the tank. To me, that makes absolutely no sense, all right? Because number one is that if you go ahead and you prime this thing, of course it's going to fire, and it's going to fire immediately, all right? The guy's going to take, like, you know, 2 or 3 hits off of it. Oh, very nice, excellent vapor production, but you don't know if he's getting dry hits and it's not working, like, after he shuts off the camera, You see what I'm saying? What we really should be doing, okay, is that just go ahead and fill the tank directly. Okay, now my tank over here filled with some juice. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to slightly tilt this thing in front of the camera with you guys. Hopefully everything's focused properly. Okay, and then you will watch it wick to the point where a drop is going to come out. See what I'm saying? From the tip over here, a drop is coming out. That's how you know something is wicking properly, as opposed to, you know, like I put a couple of drops over here. How do I know what's actually going on? Another thing that a lot of people talk about is like the whole capillary action, okay? Let me tell you something. Something this small inside of this tiny tank over here, there is no auto siphoning going on whatsoever, okay? So what you want to do is that you take your nail clipper over here and roughly around like the height of the positive post, you want to clip this off. Then you could take either a plier or a tweezer and then pinch off the tip of this thing, right? The reason why I want to pinch off the tip of this thing is that, like, you know, even though if I left this thing on its side, it's going to tilt, it's going to leak, but if I pinch the top of it off, it's not going to leak as bad. And it does not prevent any of the wicking. It's not going to hinder any of the wicking action, okay? To prove that, I'm just going to go ahead and fire this thing in front of you guys, all right? There it goes. And it's just going to be constantly auto-wicking. And this is how everything is set up properly. This is what it's supposed to be doing, all right? It's not like, you know, I'm going to go ahead and just prime the wicks or something like that so that, oh, excellent vapor production, and then we just move on. That's BS. How do you know it's actually working? Look, I'm fogging up the whole screen, holding the button down, and it's still going, it's still going. This is what happens when it's set up properly. And this is what it's supposed to look like, okay? So, at the end of this, well, you put your cap back on with the hole facing the wick so that the airflow is proper. Put your drip tip back on, fire away, and everything is set properly, okay? So, recapping again, setting up your Genesis Atomizer, you know, get your Canthal, get your tools ready, prime the wicks as much as you can, because, you know, it's better to spend more time on that than to adjust for hotspots constantly, because, you know, it's dangerous to touch those things. So you want to fiddle with that as less as possible. And then don't prime your wicks, okay? Just fill the tank and then tilt it and watch itself automatically prime itself. Then you know everything is set up properly. If it's not priming and the juice is not coming out, then maybe something's rolled too thick, maybe something is done wrong, and depending on the Genesis that you're using, you need to redo the wick again so that it wicks properly. You know what I mean? Don't just go ahead and put some juice on and cheat yourselves, because that's what other people are doing in their videos. Then they shut off the camera and we don't know, you know, if it's still working afterwards. And then lastly, pinch off the top. That way, if you decide to leave it tilted like this, you could still save it in, like, you know, 10 to 20 seconds, and, you know, it hasn't flooded itself because you slowed down the floodgates by so much more, okay? So that's how you set up your Genesis properly, okay? Take care, guys.